Alright, in this video we'll be discussing the topic of summer pruning a bonsai. Basically it's a maintenance pruning for trees that are still in development perhaps, but also trees that are already a bit further in their development. But I just want to explain you how to do it and why to do it and for which trees that's relevant. So the time for summer pruning is when growth basically starts to harden up. You want some growth, but at some point you need to start cutting back. And that's the time for me usually is sometime mid-June or late June, so that's right now. The reason I want to prune in summer as well can be twofold. One reason, as always, is to design a bonsai, so some branches just needs to be cut off to favor other branches, or some branches are growing in the wrong place, so there's a design factor to it, but there's also a maintenance factor to it. And that is, if I don't prune a tree like this or this, the tree tends to direct all its growth to the outer parts of the tree against branches on the interior of the tree. So if you don't prune, basically the tree starts shedding off branches on the interior of the tree. And with bonsai, those interior branches are super important, right? So pruning is really important to maintain and develop your trees. So I have a selection of deciduous trees here. I think that will be the main focus for now, also in terms of summer pruning. And that means that I have a small Chinese elm, I have a Japanese maple, Trident maple, and a Zelkova Japanese elm. And for all these trees, more or less the same principles apply. You want to let growth push out a bit and then prune it back to, let's say, the first 2 or 3 leaves. So for some of these branches that extended quite long, that means that you can really cut off quite a bit. But you have to make smart, educated decisions, of course. It doesn't help if you just simply apply that rule to a tree, especially for trees that are still in development, because some branches perhaps need to develop and then you don't want to prune them. So, for example, with the maple, you might know it from our YouTube channel because we have another video on it. I still want to develop this top extension right here. So we cut off the trunk right here. Then this is a new trunk, and then I need this to thicken up as well. So this branch I don't want to prune because it's basically a sacrificial apex. We have another video on sacrificial branches and apexes as well. But all these other branches around it, I can definitely prune back. And also the exterior of this tree, which is already further in its development. This little tree is also already ramified, has a nice shape to it. So this is really all about maintenance pruning, so pruning all that new growth back. Pretty much the same for this tree, a lot of long extensions in the top of the tree, which I'll start pruning back. And then I have this Japanese elm, I'll show it to you next in a bit more detail. Here we also have to make a few more educated cuts, not just simple maintenance, because this tree is also still in development. So let's just take the trees one by one, and I'll take you close up to show you the pruning. So like I said, these 2 branches I keep as sacrificial apexes. And then I'm cutting these back to the first set of leaves. Those were the long ones. And then basically for this tree, all around it, all the growth on the outer side is really strong. I did prune back the long shoots about a month ago, but now it's the time to really take a bit more time to prune the tree. Right now it's really much larger than I want it to be, and so by pruning back all those outer parts of the branches, a lot of light will hit the interior of the tree again, and that will make sure that all these small branches on the interior that I want to develop are not dying off because the tree directs the growth to the outside. So an outer trim, mostly taking back all these branches to let's say the first set of leaves, sometimes the second set, and that's basically it. So I'll just apply that simple rule to the tree and show you what the tree looks like after that. If you like this video, please help us by hitting the like button or subscribe to our channel. So let's continue with the next tree. This tree is a Trident maple, a video that will also be on our YouTube channel soon, since we've been developing this little tree for a while as well. At this point, we're no longer in need of sacrificial branches or apexes. We are looking to add ramification to the tree and to develop it to become a more refined bonsai. So in this case, we apply the exact same pruning techniques as we did to the Japanese maple previously. That means that any long shoots will be pruned back to the first set of leaves, and basically we do that throughout the entire tree. So only in places where we need more growth would we not prune back to the first set of leaves, but perhaps to the second or third set of leaves. And by doing that throughout the entire tree, we sort of force it to grow new buds and new branches and new leaves closer to the interior of the tree. And this will make the tree much more compact and refined. Styling a bonsai tree and applying these sort of techniques correctly is one of the most difficult parts in creating a bonsai tree. You can check out our YouTube channel for videos about these techniques, but perhaps also consider enrolling in one of our online bonsai courses. Here, expert teachers explain all the relevant techniques in detail, and as a student you can also ask questions directly to the teachers. Each of our online bonsai courses have free previews available in the curriculums. Simply go to bonsaiempire.com/courses. Alright, moving on to the third tree of this video. This is the Chinese elm. Another tree that you might know from our YouTube channel, which we've been developing for quite a few years. And as you can see now, the primary branch structure is here. The secondary branch structure is coming along as well, and we're just trying to get as much ramification closer to the interior of the tree as we can. So very similar to the Japanese maple and the Trident maple you've seen before, we're pruning back the new growth in summer as close as we can to the tree. So usually that means to the first or sometimes to the second set of leaves as well. And again, by pruning back that long growth, we're forcing the tree to grow new buds and new branches closer to the inside of the tree. So the added bonus of adding fine ramification to a tree is usually that the size of the leaves is also reduced. So the more fine branching you have, the smaller the leaves also tend to get. Alright, moving on to the last tree of this video. This is a Japanese elm, a Zelkova. in a very different stage of development. So in a video that will soon be published on our YouTube channel, we'll show you how this tree was styled over the course of about 2 or 3 years. But for this video, I'm just showing you the techniques applied in summer. So what happened before this summer was that this tree was styled completely. So a lot of the larger branches were pruned. We made a new branch selection and basically started restyling the tree from scratch. As you can see, this tree grew very strongly because we pruned so much off last year. All these long shoots give us a lot of new options for designing the tree. So some of these longer branches we keep, some of them we'll remove. But the ones we keep, we'll let them grow out. We'll prune them back a little bit, but not too much, because some of these branches we just need to develop more than others. So the larger branches that we keep, we can prune back this new growth much stronger. So pruning back to the first set of leaves again. But some of the branches we want to let grow a little bit more, so we'll prune less of the leaves off. And also a lot of these branches will have to come off completely, because what the tree also did after the first styling last year was that it grew a lot of new branches in places where we don't need new branches. So you'll see us remove complete new branches as well, but most of all we'll prune back growth the same way that we did to the maples and the Chinese elm before. So I'll take you time-lapse, because usually in time-lapse video you can see much better what we do exactly to the tree. The tree will look very different in 1 or 2 minutes from now, because we'll be taking off probably around 50 or 60% of the foliage easily. What this tree will do after this pruning is that, again, it will start growing much stronger than the other trees did, because this tree is still in development. We're fertilizing a lot. It's planted in a larger pot. So by taking off this much foliage again, the tree will respond by a second flush of growth, basically, that will start right away in late summer. So going into fall, we'll likely prune the tree back a little bit as well. And then in the next spring, we can start pruning the tree again. So basically this tree will be pruned likely 3 times a year for this year, next year as well, just to create more ramification into the tree to develop those branches. And I think this tree will only need 1 or 2 years before it looks a lot better and much more refined and ramified. Learn how to create your own bonsai trees by enrolling in one of our online bonsai courses. We explain techniques like pruning, wiring and repotting, and you can ask questions to the teachers. For the curriculums and free lessons, go to bonsaiempire.com/courses.